All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this second episode of Candid Business Conversations podcast. Today, I'd like to welcome a very special guest on our channel, Faith, who is also my classmate from ESSEC. She did the SMIB program. And I'm your host, again from ESSEC Business School. I did the MMD program. So similar to last time, we will be taking this conversation forward and it will be very informal. The goal is to try and get you as much insights as possible on the top 100 business schools. That is what we focus on as a company, as Envisio Consulting. So Faith, why don't we get started? You can introduce yourself and we can see what comes up and keep the conversation flowing. Welcome.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Pratush. I'm very happy for your invitation. It's been a while since last year when we were in Singapore, and now we're here in the UAE. Quite crazy. Okay, so just a few things about myself. So my name is Faith. I actually grew up here in the UAE. I went to university in the Philippines. I went to Mauritius during the pandemic, and then right after the pandemic, I went to Singapore to study for my master's in ESSEC, where Pratish was my schoolmate. And other than that, personal facts, I'm a cat lady. I love cats. I'm a foodie, so when we talk about like living in Singapore, I can share a lot of things about those things. And just that, looking forward to this conversation.
Amazing. I think that's pretty much what I also know about you, couple of things. But I'm looking forward to know more about things that we haven't discussed yet in the past 1, 2 years in Singapore. So that's a great starter actually. Why don't you tell us about your experience in Singapore? I mean, I personally, I came from India. I had no international experience before that. Singapore was my first stop. And being close to home, they call Singapore the gateway to Asia. And culturally we have a lot of Southeast Asians in there. We have international people going on right now. I think it's booming in the sense that a lot of new industries are opening up, and as everyone knows, it's a financial, banking as well as tech hub right now in Singapore. But of course we have different other industries like consulting. I myself, like, I have done the luxury specialization track, so we have a lot of luxury companies opening up. So Faith, how's your experience in Singapore been? What's your takeaways from Singapore?
So first of all, I guess part of the reason why I chose the Singapore campus is because one, it's in Asia, so I'm a little bit more familiar with it. I'm Asian, I'm from the Philippines. But having grown up in the UAE, I don't exactly, feel as connected sometimes or in some ways with Asian culture. Also because I studied in international school and I've just grown up in this very mixed environment. And so, when Pratish said that Singapore is the gateway to Asia, I would find that true because the UAE, especially Dubai, I guess. I mean, you've been in Dubai for a few months now, so you would be able to tell. It's quite similar to Singapore in terms of like convenience, the buildings, the metropolitan city kind of vibe. But then what makes it different is that there are greens, there are greenery. And then one thing that people comment about Singapore being a gateway to Asia is that you can find and sample so many different foods, and you can meet people from so many different countries, as Pratush has already mentioned. And then that will give you kind of like a tutorial on how to navigate yourself once you kind of want to travel around to the other Asian countries. Um, because one thing, like, Singapore is very safe, the transportation is amazing. And so yeah, I mean, and it's just like a hub for travel. Like, I know that my classmates every long weekend they would be out in Malaysia or Thailand or the Philippines and stuff like that. So living wise, I mean, assuming that you've got some money to spend because it is quite expensive, not gonna lie, it's very expensive to live in Singapore. I would say it's a pretty good place to live.
Indeed, indeed. It's very expensive. That's true. I mean, I think most of our trips that we did, a lot of us, we did backpacking. I mean, being in a private grande école, as they say in the French system, we did have our indulge in extravagances, like going to have a fine dining, or say doing some sort of shared activity within Singapore, outside Singapore. I think there's a lot of places in Southeast Asia. I myself have made those long weekend trips, be it in Vietnam, be it in Thailand, be it in there's a very good place, a couple of islands in the Philippines as well, where we have open diving. That's what I hear. I don't know if it can probably testify. I haven't personally been to Philippines, but then I've been to the other Southeast Asian countries, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. We used to stay, obviously, did my internship in Vietnam. There's a lot of smaller clusters of countries like Cambodia, there's Laos, there's a lot of countries worth exploring, and it has its own history and culture as well. So Faith, tell me one thing, what's your favorite food, and what would you really say about the culture in general of Southeast Asia?
Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is quite a like big region. I mean, considering the size alone of Indonesia. Um, but I guess like I guess to keep it central to Singapore because that's where ESSEC was. Um, okay, I lost myself.
No worries, no worries. Yeah.
Wait, what do you want me to? What's the question again?
So the question is, what is your favorite food in the region? Because we are trying to extrapolate Southeast Asia and Singapore. So Singapore is the gateway to Asia, and in Southeast Asia we have different countries, right? Indonesia, Vietnam,
Mm.
Malaysia, a lot of countries. So what is your favorite food scene in there, and what would you like to say about the culture in general? If someone is new as an expat, what advice or recommendation would you give to that person?
Okay. Okay, so I know like Pratyush and I have so far talked a lot about travel and all that and how expensive it is to live in Singapore, but I think that you can also explore Singapore on the cheap. So if you're the adventurous type, seriously, just go on Instagram or TikTok and there will be like a bunch of people reviewing places or like hawker centers. And hawker centers, I think, are a great way to discover new food. So one of my favorite ones is in East Coast Park. So in East Coast Park, there's a lot of seafood type of satays or all those like barbecue type of food. Um, and yeah, actually, like depending on which hawker center you go to, they have these certain like specialties. So there might be a hawker center where there's like a specialty, let's say like Indian food or like Singaporean Indian food, like curries and all that. And you go to another one that has more like ayam penyet types of food, So it's like, I miss that so much. Um, and so yeah, so I guess like if you just do honestly like a food tour, honestly what I like doing in Singapore before was that I would just hop on a bus. I would like go down at a random station and then just explored around the area. Probably you're gonna find a nearby hawker center and then see what's good. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that kind of opens up. Of course, that's just like a preview to Southeast Asia's culture. It's just like one part of it, but it can get you interested. Like, for example, coming to Singapore, I honestly didn't know what carrot cake was. I was like, how is this carrot when it's white? I didn't realize that the reason why is because they call this radish. To me, I know it as radish, as like carrot, like white carrot. I was like, oh, okay, that was like a big light bulb moment for me.
Indeed, I have also tried those curry puffs, carrot cakes. I think those are very common to Singapore. The culture, the food culture, the music culture. I think there's a lot of different avenues and perspectives we can explore. But let's hop right in from travel and the cultural perspective to the program that we both did, and I'll share my perspective on the MMD, or the marketing, digital marketing and the luxury brand management program. And Faith here is from the SMIB program. So it's focused on international business and strategy management. So Faith, probably you can tell me what was interesting during the 1 year long program, some facet by facet case studies, so that our viewers can get a little bit more perspective on the program that we did in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay, so the SMIB program has a very long name. It's called the Master of Strategy and Management of International Business. So very, very official sounding long name. So basically there are multiple tracks under the SMIB actually. So in the Singapore track, there's the Asian focused consulting track and the uh, corporate track. And then in Sergi, there's the digital transformation. There's also the consulting track and the corporate track. So since I only went to Singapore, so I'm only going to talk about that. And me personally, I went to the consulting track. So one key feature I would say of the SMIB program is this challenge called the ASC, which is the Asian Strategy Challenge, which is basically like a 6 month overall consulting mission that you do with a real life company. So you enter school at September, and then once October rolls around, you choose a company, but at the same time they have to choose you. So it's kind of like a job application. So you submit your CV, you submit your interest. I want to, do an ASC project with this company, and then like all the results come out on October. And then starting from then, they will explain to you what kind of mission that they want you to be involved in. So it can be like a new market entry. It could be like they're trying to launch a new product. It could be that, for my particular case, they were trying to start a new pilot project. They were trying to see if it's feasible, like what would be the pricing, what would be the strategy if we do this and all that. So yeah, so there's quite a few different companies. There's because each ASC group is like there's like maximum of 3 students in it. And so I think overall there were like 20 plus companies who presented to us. And then so you can really take your pick. It depends on what kind of industry you're interested in, what kind of project you want to do, and stuff like that. I was very lucky that I got matched with the company that I chose. Like they were on the top of my list. And because for me, I was really interested in sustainability. I mean, like you can see from the background, a tree hugger. Um, so yeah, so I got matched with a startup consulting firm that focuses on waste management. And then for them, I did like with my group mates, we did a implementation strategy for a pilot project because they were trying to set up like a doorstep recycling service. And so that was really fun. It was very informative. One thing I would say about it is that if you come from a non-business background like I do, you may not be too familiar how consulting missions even work, right? It's kind of like a different let's say like field. Like for example, for me, I was in psychology and I did a pre-med course, and so my course was very like biology focused, and the kinds of projects we did under psych were very, let's say, like humanitarian, nonprofit, like qualitative research, those kinds of things. And you would think that it will not match, but some of those skills you can match still, except that you have to apply them in a different way. And to be able to do that under the tutelage of like an ESSEC professor. So each ASC group has a mentor who is an ESSEC professor. And then they will be able to guide you. You can ask them questions, like you will have meetings with them before you present what you have to your client. At the same time, you get to know how to, kind of deal with clients as well, how to present questions. One big problem for me is that I'm very like, I guess, verbose. I write a lot. I talk a lot as well. And so the challenge for me is how to kind of like make things like precise and concise. Like in business sense, these like top executives, they just want like a full overview. They want like a one pager where they can read it and then they have a full sense of what's going on. Um, and so yeah, and so to me that was like the main feature of the SMIB and also the most valuable one, I think, in my experience.
Very aptly put. I mean, I can talk about something similar, which is the digital marketing challenge in our program. I think most of these programs are focused on hands-on projects rather than just
Mm.
theoretical learning. So, as Faith said, ESSEC professor is mapped to your particular study group, and then you also have help from external consultants or board members from the company directors coming in to give feedback on the final presentation day. That's really valuable because the curriculum as such also gets changed from time to time, like it's revised. There are new professors coming in, new visiting faculty, and there's also professors flying in from France. So this reminds me, Faith, about the design thinking bootcamp that we did. I think it was called Responsible Innovation Bootcamp, which was
Yeah.
a 7-day challenge, which also focused on how to make Singapore better. That was our topic, and I myself, I was very passionate about that project, and that was my first entry into how design thinking and group work works. But then it was very special because we had been doing group projects among our cohort, like in the digital marketing cohort. That was, I think, the first challenge where we shared platform with SMIB. So what they did was they mixed up 3 students each from both programs. So we had a group size of 6, and it was more like a competition where we had an external facilitator coming in, and that too was very different in the sense that every team focused on a very different problem statement or challenge. And as Faith mentioned, with the Asian Strategy Consulting Project, they had a list of companies to choose from or areas that they might be interested in, and then depending on interests and certain rules or criteria, the problem statements were assigned, right? So even in that project that I'm talking about, the Responsible Innovation Bootcamp, what we did was we did a 7-day challenge where we did prototyping, we did ideation, all the parts of the design thinking process. And the perspectives were very, very different because Faith, for example, comes from a psychology background. So she was the one who actually helped us define the problem statement, redefine it again and again, because I myself am an engineer. I come from a very technical, analytical, quantitative background, but then I switched to business. So Faith comes from a qualitative background. So I think one of the key challenges we faced as a team was to bring synchronicity, in the sense that we had to come on a common, like there was a common problem statement, but we had to come together at a common point and then ideate and design the solution, and within a specific time frame. So I think that was a very interesting learning experience for me as well. So all these programs at the ESSEC Asia Pacific campus, they have a certain structure and format, but then depending on what your interests are, you should really choose your masters depending on that. For example, there's SMIB, there's MMD, there's other programs, masters in finance, there's even a sustainability transformation program which is coming up,
Mm.
and the Sergi campus, which is the French campus, where the bigger programs are hosted, like for example the MIM program, which is the general management longer duration program. There's a lot of options to choose from, really, and being alma maters from the same institute, I think we are well equipped to give you more information about our experiences. And I think that's what is very interesting, that in Asia, the gateway to Asia, as Singapore is nicely called, we get an Asian focus or an Asian taste of the same thing which is taught in France. So it's more like a French school which is teaching international subjects in an Asian format, which is very, very niche and very unique. So Faith, now that we have discussed about the programs a bit, let's talk about, let's say, the career resources. Yeah, what do you think a student who is just into the program should do so that they get an early start into, say, networking or getting into the resources? Because a lot of times when we are new to the program, we are still in that, rosy moment where we are just entering a new country, exploring the country, and things are moving pretty fast. Before we know it, the program is over, right? So what do you
Mm.
think would be some strategies to try to tap into the career resources as soon as possible when we enter university?
Okay, so I guess okay. Okay, first, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask this because when I would entered, as you said, like the rosy period and all that, but like in that sense, I kind of focus just on building relationships with people first, and then second, the strategy. And so for me, like I didn't really have a strategy per se, but I just wanted to, I guess, learn as much from the people I interact with. And every time there's like a information session, a company comes along and then presents their company, and then maybe you might have like an opportunity with them one day. I just try to ask some questions, get their contacts and all that. So I guess like uh, you can do that as well. One thing that I do stand by on is that the career services is only as effective as much as you use it. So for me personally, I try to develop a good relationship with my career services person. So there's for each program, there's a person who is assigned to your program or group. And then that person, you can ask them questions, you can ask them for advice about like whether you should take certain internships, maybe not. You want to have questions about the contract, like is this a fair contract and all that. And I know that some people don't use career services or don't contact that person assigned to them. And it's just an individual choice, right? So for me, I think it really helped me in a sense because until now I still remain in contact with the career services advisor who was assigned to us, even though she's no longer with ESSEC anymore. But also she helped me through tough times. Like there was a time where I was choosing whether to go for an internship or not because I was very excited about it. It was in an industry that I was very interested in. But when I got the terms, I was a little bit like there were some alarm bells going on. And I was like, is this a fair contract? Is this like, can I do this together with my coursework? Is it possible am I gonna just out tire myself? So I remember the contract was like, it's not that bad. It's like maybe like 20 hours a week or maybe less. But then considering how packed the SMIB program is, where literally there are some weeks where we have we start at 8 a.m. and then we end at 7 p.m. And then on the weekends you have schoolwork, you have group work. And even if you don't, you're in a new country, you wanna explore, you wanna go around, or you wanna just rest and like the work hours is during the weekend, so it's gonna take up my whole weekend and all that. And for the pay, I think it was not. I was kind of thinking whether it was worth it or not because the pay wasn't the highest, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend my weekends on this, and the pay isn't the highest. Is it worth it? So yes, I had a talk with my career counselor. She didn't tell me what to do. She didn't do the decision for me, but she just asked me some questions that was like, here's what you need to consider. Here is what do you want to do after SMIB? What do you want to gain out of this experience? If you can answer those for yourself, like the answer will reveal itself. And then you can let me know whether you want me to help you in the negotiations and all that. So yeah, so in the end, I didn't take the internship, but that was very big help for me because, if I had taken it, I might have not necessarily regretted it, but had a hard time with it and kind of like because I didn't think about it through. And then since I didn't, but I have no regrets because I know that I thought about it and thought that it was not the best thing for me at that time. So yeah, so just use the resources that you have if there are companies that are visiting your campus, then try to be in touch with them. And then for ESSEC in particular, there's a website for like job posts called Job Teaser. Unfortunately, like a lot of the posts there are in France. So if you're studying in Singapore, there's not a lot of things that are for Singapore, but yeah, it could still help you. Try to connect with your alumni from LinkedIn. I know that one of the reasons I got into SMID in the first place is because I talked with a few alumni actually before going in, and they got to tell me about the program, just like I guess how I'm telling you now, except a more personal call. So yeah, so that's how you can kind of plan your way through.
I think that's pretty nicely put. So it's very important to actually know what you're looking for, even before you join the program, get into that commitment period of a full year or a 1.5 years, whatever the duration of the program is, and then also plan your way ahead. And it's not like a hard and fast rule that you might come into the program saying that, say, I want to do consulting or I want to do marketing. Your goals might change along the way as you meet new people and as you interact, but then as you move out of your comfort zone and try to really push your boundaries, go and attend these career sessions, guest speakers coming on campus, because even for the marketing program, we were not just limited to things which were organized by the career session manager who was there for the MMD, but then we also got exposed to university level resources. I mean, definitely one thing that I think ESSEC stands out is the French alumni network, because it's a French heavy school. So a lot of these resources might be French focused. So I mean, when we come to the Asia Pacific campus, we have something in mind that we want an international education and at the same time also want to leverage the French network later on, right? So there's a lot of other schools like, say, INSEAD and ESCP, a lot of other French focused schools which have a different strategy. For example, they have multi campuses, or INSEAD, for example, is focused attributes. ESSEC, for example, has a very heavy focus on luxury consulting or luxury brand management as well. Every school has different facets. Like every school has entrepreneurship, consulting, other areas like strategy, food business. A lot of other chairs and tracks, as Faith mentioned, are also available. But then there's always a key strength or very focus area, very strong focus area for a school that one must be aware of. I think a lot of research, talking to people, this really helps in not just choosing the school but also navigating the way forward. It's all about how badly you want to make it work, right? So pretty much I think that would be a good way to put it. So Faith,
Well, I guess like
let's
sorry,
yeah.
Patrice, like just to add, always have fun. Just have fun
Yeah.
doing it. At least for me, like all of those things, because like I don't know, maybe it's part of the rosy thing that you said, right? When I entered business school, it's like a totally new field to me, so everything was new, everything was fun. And that's why I think that's how I kind of not just survived, but did well as well. And so as long as you're kind of still having fun at what you're doing, then yeah, it's the way to go. And like Pratush said, that each school will have their own, like, let's say, focus or something that they're good at. But then you yourself have something that you're good at, and you have your own focus. So it's a matter of like how you can kind of combine those two things together and like make something unique that is your own.
Definitely. I think a lot of these programs, they offer this a la carte approach also. That's something I'm coming across, like the longer duration programs. So as Faith rightly mentioned, you have your own set of skills. And this is something I, as a consultant, when I deal with clients and talk to my friends as well, they ask me, but how do I ensure success while applying to business school, right? So it's about the fit, what your personality style is. And because I am myself interested a bit into psychology, and we had a lot of courses focused around psychology, human behavior, so a lot of these things can be mapped in the sense that at least you yourself should have a self-reflective experience of what you are looking for in terms of a short-term career horizon or a long-term career horizon, and then things might change. That's okay. And I think sometimes we take things too seriously as well. It's all about having fun, and then the learning process also increases exponentially. For example, I remember in that bootcamp that we did, we named our team lunch break, right, Faith? So
Yeah.
initially I was like, lunch break, really? But then, I mean, we had a lot of funny incidents too. We had a lot of behind the scenes conversations. Probably we can do a podcast about that also later. But then
Yeah.
I remember we were out there in the community neighborhoods, crushing leaves, having a milkshake, talking to people. That was a lot of interesting experiences, a lot of experiential stuff, as we say. So ESSEC has a huge focus on experiential learning, and a lot of other schools also do. Like, say, the US Ivy League schools, they follow not just the case methodology, but we also have a lot of experiential projects going on. It's not just the classroom, but then you go out, you get the learning and then compile them. I think with our team, we had a group which was doing research online, and a group like I think me and Faith were part of it. We were outside and we were trying to
Yeah.
get first-hand insights, talking to the people out there, trying to understand what are the trends. And it was quite hot, I would say, like the weather, but then it was also fun. So really depends on what you're interested in. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I guess like sorry, just to add because I just remembered it. So I guess like for me, one of the reasons why I picked ESSEC is because of the class size. So because Pratush was talking about the experiential, experience of it. Um, when you have a bigger class, let's say of 120 students, it's kind of hard to have the same kind of interactions. And then I also like when you're in a much bigger campus, I guess it might be a little bit hard to connect with. I mean, it comes like it's a little bit of yes and no. Like there's more people, so there's more people to get to know, but also like it might be a little bit harder. But with a smaller campus like ours, so it's quite easy to get to know someone else from another program, kind of like get a one-to-one. And then when you have these like groups as well, there's a lot of like group work, presentations, and all that. So if you find value in that, then you might find value with a smaller class.
indeed, I think that's one of the USPs of the Asia Pacific campus is that we really know everyone on campus. I remember I can go look at like what's happening on different parts of the school. It's a really small campus, and every student knows the other student, right? So for
Mm.
example, you might find the dean having lunch. You might want to join her and just talk to her about what are the things that are going on around campus. It's a very lively neighborhood as well. Bona Vista INSEAD campus is just right next door. We have a Star Vista Mall, which is more like there's a lot of cafeterias, restaurants, and a lot of office people out there as well. So location wise, I think it's pretty centrally located, and it's all about what your priorities or interest areas are really. So that's quite a lot of serious conversation. Let's just dive into something which is more exciting. What do we talk about?
Mhm.
Let's talk about the student community. Yeah, let's talk about the student trips. And oh, I forgot, Faith was the student ambassador for SMIB, so she was actively involved in doing these webinars. You might have interacted with her while asking about the SMIB program. So we had a student leadership committee. I was the student representative for my cohort as well. So we did have a lot of one-to-one conversations with stakeholders as well. So why don't you tell us about your experience as a student ambassador and the student community, student life in general? What's your take regarding the same? Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to be a student ambassador because when I was applying, as I mentioned before, I had to contact the previous student ambassadors. So like they're alumni now, but at that time they were students. And then they helped me a lot, like just answering questions about like, oh, like I'm kind of scared. Is it like safe in that area? You can ask them those things that you might not be very open about asking to like, let's say your recruiter or like an admissions person. But since they're a student and you know that they went through the same thing probably just a year before you did, so you might be a little bit more open and sharing like, oh, I'm kind of like concerned about these. Is it easy? You can ask them even the dumbest stuff like honestly like, is it easy to make friends? Where do I eat and all that? Like how do I find a place to live in and all those things. So um non-academic questions, I think that is also valuable when considering where you want to study. So yeah, so that was my experience as like a student trying to ask a student ambassador for questions and stuff. And as student ambassador, I wanted to do the same service. So people would message me on LinkedIn asking about admissions questions, like living questions, all that. So it was quite fun. I liked it. It was a lot of giving back. Also when we were in Bangkok, so Pratisha also mentioned the study trip. So for SMIB, we did our study trip in Bangkok. So it was a 1 week trip of like meeting companies, networking events, and all that. And the student ambassadors, we also had a live event that was also like live broadcasted on LinkedIn, um, where we just talk about the program and all that. That was really cool. I was like, wow, I'm on TV. So there are like quite a few perks to it. But yeah, so for each cohort, there's only like 4 ambassadors that get picked. So I would say it's not the easiest to get into, but yeah, I mean, like even if you don't become a student ambassador, I'm pretty sure you can still help out. Like if you want to, people would if people know that you're from ESSEC and people are interested, they might just contact you. So yeah, so there's that about being a student ambassador. As for like the student trips, um, it's kind of like what I mentioned already earlier, which is like company visits or like they're trying to recruit you, you're trying to get to know about their company, but just in another country. So so it's that. So we're talking about like the greater Southeast Asian region. So you get out of Singapore and then just go to another place and see what the opportunities are there, what's needed, what industries are booming there. Do I want to live in this place? Do I see myself maybe working for this company? Because you get to visit their offices as well, and that's like I think a cool thing. So so yeah, and I know each program will have their different study trips. I forgot where MMD did their study trip on,
We
but
went to
yeah.
Bangkok as well. Same. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But then like I kind of like cheated in a way, but not really cheated because like the Sergi SMIB program, so they went to Dubai and I went with them. So so I'm not from their class. I asked Anne-Fleur, who was our academic director at that time, was like, "Hi, Anne-Fleur, my family lives in the UAE. Can I come with?" And she's like, "Okay, sure, as long as you can pay for your own ticket and like lodging." I was like, "Okay, good." So I flew here. Thank goodness there was no schooling. Like I didn't have any classes during then. Um and so I flew here. I did the study trip with the Sergi campus. That's why I know people from the French campus as well. And then I visited my family at the same time, so it was a win-win.
Definitely, definitely. I think you have this dual connection to the Middle East because you stay here. And I myself, I mean, I had never expected I'd land up here in Dubai and do this company. But then that's how life goes. Initially, we were all looking for jobs in Singapore, but then a lucrative opportunity might turn up in other geographies. So I think that's the best part of doing a master's,
Mm.
MBA, whatever specialized program we are doing, that it's not just a function shift but also a geography shift and an industry shift which is possible. So it's difficult but it's always possible. It's all about how much effort and the timeline that you're looking at, right? So pretty much. So Faith, I think it's been very interesting talking to you. Thank you so much for all the tips and tricks and the advice regarding the program. So, do you have any key takeaways for students who are wanting to apply to the SMIB program? Like, give me 3 tips that would be beneficial and actionable. Yeah.
Okay. So this was something that was mentioned earlier already. It's like I think one important thing about going into SMIB is that knowing why you want to go to SMIB. Because once you're in SMIB, everything is gonna be just a whirlwind. I'm not like I'm gonna be very honest in saying that it's a 1-year course, but it's like equivalent to like a 2-year MIM program, but like packed into 1 year. And so it's gonna be very tiring. It's gonna be very long days. It's gonna be very packed. And so through all of that, it's important to know like to just kind of stick with what your goal is for being there. Why do I want to be in this program? Why did I choose to be here? What do I want out of it afterwards? And so that's one thing. The second thing is to just kind of immerse yourself in the experience. Like as we mentioned as well earlier, you might this is kind of contradictory to my first point, but entering SMIB, you might already have an idea of what you want and what you want to get out of this. But I would say still be open to the experience and still be open to the idea that you might know or get to know about something that might, shift you a little bit. Like maybe I want to do this more. Maybe you meet someone and you have a conversation with them and find out, oh, their job is really cool. Maybe I want to do that as well. Or like, for example, you do like if you're a SMIB and then you have a project with an MMD who is very marketing focused, and it's like, hey, that's so cool. We didn't have any courses on that, and suddenly you want to do marketing. So just just be open that things might change. For me personally, there have been like quite a few shifts. There were some things that I entered with that just kind of gotten bolstered that yes, I really do want this. But there were also some things that I realized that, oh, I didn't think that I wanted this as much as I thought I did. And so, yeah, so first thing is know what you want to get out of it. Second thing is to be open to the experience still. And the third is to just have fun. I know it's a very, it's like, it's a very, okay, so like business schools are kind of known as party schools. I'm not telling you to go out and party every weekend, but I'm just saying that um if you're not planning to take a PhD, or if yeah, if you're not planning to take a PhD, then this is probably gonna be your last few years being a student. And then after that it's working. And even if it's packed, as a student, you still have these like long holidays and all that. And I guess just enjoy that you still have the structure. I know that, I guess for me a little bit, that's something that afterwards I thought that, oh my God, like I still had things like laid out for me. Like I just follow this program and I have the structure. But then afterwards, when you go into the real world or get your own job, or if you choose to go to a startup like I did, or you choose to do the entrepreneurship path, the self-employed path like Pratush did, then a lot of things are gonna be very uncertain, and a lot of things are gonna be like not laid out, that you're just gonna have to figure out by yourself, and you're gonna miss those times where oh, I wish I could just like look at the syllabus and then know what I'm gonna do tomorrow. But instead, you have to make your own syllabus and just decide that, okay, I have to do this by next month, I have to do this by tomorrow and all that. So just enjoy it. Like just enjoy your last few days of being a student. So I guess those are my, yeah, three key actionable tips.
Perfect. That's very nicely put. Also, I think the third one is really interesting and I resonate with that as well. It's very important to have fun. So at ESSEC, I remember we had this catchphrase or a quote which said, ESSEC people, they study hard, party hard, like study hard, play hard. Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Socializing is a big part of French culture, and in general also it's very important to socialize, not just from a networking perspective but also in the sense that you build relationships. And this is something Faith was also mentioning at the start, that the focus at the start should always be on nurturing and building these relationships, because then if you build these relationships authentically and if you genuinely build a bond, then you don't really need to do networking separately, like it automatically happens, right? For example, for this call, I mean, I just messaged Faith out of the blue and I was like, are you available? So she was like, yeah, why not? And I mean, she did this as a student ambassador as well, but I wanted it to be a little bit more informal. So pretty much you guys can tell in the comments if there's something new which needs to be added to this format of podcast. And I will see you on the other weeks. Like we'll have more speakers soon on the channel. And if anyone who is watching is from a top 100 program, not just a business school but then from a top 100 university, would love to have you as a guest on the channel. And I think the more we grow, the more information we spread. That's the goal at the end of the day, and it's helping out someone. So thanks, Faith, for making the time,
Thank you as well.
and really appreciate the insights that you shared today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to meet everyone, or not meet, but see you, not see you. So if anyone just wants to contact me, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or just, contact Pratush on his agency. I'm pretty sure, like, I trust Pratouche as a friend and as a old schoolmate, and I'm pretty sure he can help you with your admissions needs. So looking forward to that.
Thank you.